here. Today, what I want to talk about is how to create really compelling presentations and decks to show to your customers. This can be in the form of an ebook or a PowerPoint or even a PDF that you want to show to people. This is not limited to PowerPoint and PowerPoint only. So, a couple key areas. First, the number one most important thing is keep it simple. And remember, slides are cheap. In the bad old days when you used to do this with film, they were still cheap. Now they're free. There is no additional cost to having additional slides. So why does this matter? Keep your bullets short. One of the big things you want to avoid is walls of text. This is one of the most common errors I've seen among sales teams and presentation builders. Because if you fill the screen with text, they're not going to pay attention to you. When in doubt, break it into multiple slides. So because slides are free, if you have a wall of text, why not make it 3 slides and just show them for 1/3 of the time you have it planned? You don't have to have a slide up for any given amount of time. Don't judge your presentation's length by the number of slides. It's about how long you're going to speak. Some slides you might want to have up for a while, some not. At the end of the day, remember, if they're reading, they ain't listening to you, they're reading. So if you fill it with too much stuff, you're going to have a problem. This is too much. I mean, these are awesome quotes, but I've covered the slide in this, and if anyone's reading it, I'm sure my voice is going back to a gentle drone, guaranteed to put you to sleep. That just will not do. One line here is way more impact. I'm a big fan of Teddy Roosevelt. He was a wonderful writer and a lot of fun. So they don't care how much you know until they know what you care. Why does that matter? Well, it's about whether they can empathize with you. So this is a good thing to remember when you're giving a presentation. Don't read. So let's go back. More impact. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. Teddy Roosevelt. Wasn't that boring? Don't do that. Don't read. So the way I like to use my PowerPoints and slides is they're about keeping me on track and making sure I don't go off into tangents. But they're not about every word I speak should not be on the PowerPoint. If your goal is to have someone have a transcript of what you're going to present, give them a handout afterwards. Next key point, clarity over style, also known as clarity over form. You want clear contrast. The best message in the world will get lost if there's so much design work that you can't appreciate it. But if you have lots of beautiful design, but you're not saying anything, what's the point? So nice, simple contrast will communicate the point of your product and your offering. This is what not to do. So let's say I'm a bathtub company, and I'm going to install the bathtubs with doors in them. Great for access. And I want to get people to think about, oh, go to the bath. It's like you're going to the Caribbean. You get this warm water, and it's so relaxing. So I'm going to show a picture of an ocean. Okay. Who can read this? This is illegible. It's low contrast. It's not easy to read. Like reading what not to do itself is sort of hard. You have to work at it. Don't make your viewers work. If you look at a lot of the big keynote presentations given by maybe the big companies like Amazon or Apple, most of the time it's white text on black because it's simple. It's easy to read. It's bright. Your users can grab it instantly, your viewers. Remember, the simple is good. It doesn't have to be white on black, but I use this as an example. You want to get your understanding through more than you want people to study the artwork. Next, keep your text large. If you have to go to if you're in your PowerPoint and you're trying to shrink the font, you're doing something wrong. Like the only time you want to shrink the font is if it's something you don't want people to read. Like if there's a disclaimer that has to be there, but you don't want people to focus on it, you want people to focus on the richness of the product, not the fact that it's unavailable in the state of New Hampshire. Put that in small text. Otherwise, keep it big. It's really tempting to shrink the text when you say, oh, I just want this extra word. Nope. If you have to shrink the text, there's too much text. Use images sparingly. A picture should support your content or communicate clearly the message. It's not about decoration. This is not a scrapbook. You're using your presentation to communicate your product, your service. You want to explain to people why they should buy it from you right now. So more images means you must reduce the text by an appropriate amount as well. Here's how not to use an image. So we want to communicate to our customer here, oh, we measure everything twice. We're really precise. We're taking good care of our homeowners. And I found this lovely image of a ruler. It was free. This is great. And I put text over it, and it's hard as hell to read. That's terrible. Same thing here. I've got a little better. I now have somewhat more contrast, but now I have this big blob of text. If someone's reading this, they're not listening to me again. And I've sort of lost the impact of my message versus this. I still have my measurement message, but I've made sure that I've trimmed down the text to the essence of the message. We're often tempted to include lots of little extras in our wording. You want to be as clear and concise as possible on your deck. You can use your audio track and basically you talking to add in all the other bits. This is just about driving that one point home. And you don't need to show everything unless your quantity is the message. So sometimes I will fill a slide with something, not because I want people to see and study it, because I want to show variety. Like, look at all these integrations. Isn't this awesome? It's not about, do we specifically integrate with Job Nimbus on the slide? It's about showing the variety here of all the groups we work with. Information density can also go a little wild. So I actually saw a slide like this, and this is almost impossible to sort through. It's cool, but we have too much going on here. If we show less density, like this was originally designed to show, oh, here are all the elements to your contracting process, and here's how we make it better. Well, here the real goal is the homeowner's losing control because there's too many subcontractors from this particular service slide. Is this much simpler and a more boring slide? Yes, of course. Is it much clearer, and is the viewer going to understand your message? Yes. It's a much crisper message. Another thing that will help you a lot when you're doing presentation is use your templates. This is specific to PowerPoint, but many other products have similar things. They have this thing called the master slide template. Make good use of it. It's more important to have your slides consistent than anything else, because that will give you that professional feeling. It is really tempting to every slide manually tune the layout of, oh, well, this one slide, I think the text should be over on the far right and centered, but every other slide, they're all left aligned on the far left and stretching the full width. That's going to make things pretty weird. You want to be very careful when to manually tune the layout. If you do a unique layout for every single slide, you have no consistency. One thing that'll help you is if you have to do more than one presentation, grab a designer and invest in a well-made PowerPoint template for your company. We're not talking big investments here, but what that will give you is a beautiful layout every time that your non-designer teams who are building these presentations can make use of every time, and all your presentations will then be consistent with themselves and with the rest of your company. Some modest effort and a modicum of planning will radically improve the quality of the work and make it look more professional, make it look more reputable for your customers. So let's talk a little about special effects. This is one of the old axioms from Hollywood of the best special effect is the one you don't notice if it's subtle. I mean, there's special effect movies, but the really, really clever ones, you have no idea what the special effect is. So animations are one of the things you see a lot in presentations. And you can use them to focus the viewer, like I'm using here, if I'm just bringing in one bullet at a time and just fading it in. You want to keep them to a minimum. Animations are like icing. In small amounts, it's delicious, but if you eat a whole bucket of icing at once, you might get diabetes, as fun as the bucket eating could be. And one of the other ones with animations is when you think you almost have enough, then it's the perfect level. When you think you have enough, you probably have too many. So, and if you think you have too many, there's no question, you got way too many. So less is more on these. So we can go overall is like, look at this thing. Oh, okay, that's kind of crazy. It's fun, but it's fun. It doesn't convey responsibility and professionalism as much as we could with other ones. And some of the animations are a lot like swiveling. Okay, it's really dramatic, but it's also going to distract your viewers. Again, as you're watching that, are you watching those cool swivels or listening to me blather? They're not really going to read the text as it swivels. It's, oh, look at that swivel. Ooh, movement. Our eyes are attracted to movement. So use these things rarely. So this is one of my favorite animation approaches. So I've gone back to our measure everything twice. Look at that animation. Go back. You notice it's subtle. It's just fading the things in and fading the color in. The subtlety is not going to distract the user. You would just say, oh, something's changed, and we measure everything twice. My animation is not going to take away from that message, because your message is why you're doing this. This is not a work of art. This is a piece of applied art. So next up, you always want to optimize your images and videos. This is one of the steps even professional designers often miss. So if you have a presentation, you've included a bunch of videos, and it says 2.4 gigabytes. Over a cell phone, that's a 10-minute download, and you're going to burn through a lot of that cell phone's data cap. The viewer will not thank you. So that's why we care. So when you're dealing, we're going to look at a couple different types here. One are JPEGs. This is your workhorse of photography. You can adjust the quality of these, and you want to use JPEGs for your photographs. When I say just the quality, lower the quality to the point where till just above where you start to notice it. PNGs are terrific for diagrams, also GIFs, and logos. You don't really want to use these for photographs. They're going to make your presentation very fat. It's just differences in how the compression systems work. So like this picture of this little house where it's all solid colors, PNGs are going to be terrific. Diagrams, PNGs are great. Photos, use JPEGs. Your third image type is called the SVG. These are somewhat rarer. The beauty is they will always be sharp. They're terrific for logos. They're very space efficient. You literally cannot do a photo with these because they're all vector work, meaning they're all the inside of the image. It's all math, so you can't do photographs with them. Well, I suppose theoretically you could, but you never ever would want to try, and most software will not let you. So the next one is think about how big your image is. So one time I was helping a client work on one of their decks, and they had an image that was 10,000 pixels wide. Well, most of your average television screen is only 1920 pixels wide, so all those extra pixels did nothing of value for us. Shrink your images. And if you're trying to send something, if you're trying to make a presentation that's going to be downloaded online, keep in mind that even if your image is, say, a 4K type image, most iPad users won't notice it. So think about shrinking your content down. And this also applies for movies. That 2.4 gigabyte presentation I mentioned a few slides ago was not theoretical. That was something that I had to help resize down. The problem was the presentation of this wonderful video showing an installation of a product, and it was a wonderful high-res 4K perfect quality video. It was 1.5 gigabytes alone. An iPad or the average screen is not going to display all of that, and took forever to download. So we shrank it down to 720p, which is one of the lower res high def standards, and adjusted compression, and it went down to about 100 megabytes. So in terms of size, that would be a 20-fold decrease in size. And for the way where it was being displayed, you couldn't tell the quality difference. So you always want to try to shrink down your copies in your presentations. Now, please do keep the high-res master somewhere safe. You may need that again in the future, but always shrink down. So the other piece with videos is think about the compression standards. So if you're going to do videos, you don't have to, but if you go down that path, focus a little bit on how they were saved. So talk with your design team or whoever's doing your video editing work. Let's look at the size differences. So 4K using this codec, 2.4 gigs. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I get down to 81 megs using the HEVC codec at 720p, 81 megs. So if you can use videos, make sure to include optimization time. Very important to do. So hopefully this has been interesting for you guys. I'm glad to have done this. Please let us know if you have any questions, and I will do my best to answer them via email or reach out to Kelly. Otherwise, Kelly, I am turning this back to y'all.
Perfect. Thank you, Tor. That was great. Lots of great info there. Let me go ahead and share my screen back up for everyone. All right, if there's any questions, feel free to drop those in. I know we've got a lot of content and things to cover today, so I do want to keep things moving on ahead. But you can go ahead and drop those questions into the Q&A box there, or if you think of anything after the call today, feel free to submit those to that marketing@leaptodigital.com email address that's on your screen now. That will go directly to me, so I'll be keeping an eye out for that. So Tor, I think that was some really great information on the building of the presentation. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations or tips for folks who are like for the actual presentation delivery itself?
I would say don't write a script for yourself in detail. You don't want to plan out every word. Flashcards or note cards can be good to just keep yourself on track. The goal is to not make it rigid. Make it a little bit freeform. Make it more like a conversation, and then a strict, I do this, this, and this. And I use my slides the same way. If you notice, they don't have a huge amount of text on them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, practice it. And if you're comfortable with your product, your belief in your product will show through. And don't stress about it. Just think of it like you're talking to one person, just over the table, explaining to them what your product is, or what your sales pitch is, or what concept you're trying to get across, or what you're trying to educate. It's really just a conversation, and there happens to be more people at the table than usual. That's sort of my mental approach to it. And same thing with delivery. Try not to make it too wooden.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Tor. Appreciate you coming on today, and
My pleasure.
we'll chat again soon.